Buenas, bienvenidos a este vídeo de unplandivino.net. Por así decir, vamos a seguir con el taller de crianza de los niños del 2009, de la verdad divina, y volved a saludar y ya seguimos por donde lo dejamos. ¿Qué tal el descanso, Claudia, empezando desde el sur?
Sí, reparador, Iván, a pesar de que estamos disfrutando mucho y que es muy movilizante y no es un cansancio, digamos, del esfuerzo o del estar yendo en contra, al contrario, pero sí sirve para respirar, para estirar un poco el cuerpo, sí, hace bien, gracias.
Y Ana, de Venezuela, ¿cómo vamos?
Bien. Una cosa que dice Claudia, aunque no es un trabajo, vamos a decir, físico, una cosa, pero hasta cierto punto cansa, pero en el buen sentido, porque lo vivencia, o sea, siente que cada participante, ahí estás tú, simplemente él lo está representando. Bueno, gracias, Iván.
Gracias. Pues.
Gracias a todas.
Y Marisol, en México.
Hola, sí, muchas gracias, Iván. La verdad, valoro mucho escuchar esto.
Sí.
Gracias.
Va a estar muy gracioso ahora, a partir de ahora también. Y bueno, pues si estalla algún volcán o eso, ya nos contáis. Y paramos un momento, quitáis un poco la lava y eso y ya seguimos. Bueno. Aquí lo habíamos dejado.
My name's Alison. Basically, the first 2 decades of my life, I was in a religious cult. I got out of culture and spent 10 years with drugs, just to escape. I couldn't deal with feeling anything. So drugs was wonderful for that. And it's been about 2.5 years since I've got off it, but I'm still really shut down and just. After spending an entire lifetime repressed, I just don't know how to get into my feelings. It's just too scary. And I guess, like as I've been sitting here and feeling all the grief over the 10 years of my life that I wasted, it's literally a third of my life that I basically can't remember.
Where you are now, it is the you want to pick up. So that's a good thing. But let's look at, so how old are you now? 30. And you say you're in a religious cult, so that means that your parents probably brought you to that.
Oh, yes.
So what's the religion?
Son estos, que se llama así, 2x2, muy raro. Aquí tenemos unos representantes, una secta cristiana, ahora veremos.
It's so fabulous, it doesn't even have a name.
Okay. Now, it was a Christian type of college? Yeah. And what was the feelings you had during it, like when you were there?
Oh, absolute repression.
Yeah, of every feeling inside of you.
Not just that, of my personality.
Yeah.
I couldn't be me.
Yeah.
And even now, you know, I've never been able to show my parents who I am.
So when you wanted to be who you are, and they shut you down, how did they shut you down?
Expectation. You just weren't allowed to do things.
So if you did it, what would you do? What would happen to you?
That was just all finished.
Towards God? Or towards them?
Them projecting guilt onto me.
Yeah. That you're not making them happy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And also that you're not making God happy?
No.
No? So mostly it's about them being happy.
Yeah.
O sea, tenerles contentos, también que se dice.
So, with all of this guilt that's there, you feel some really deep fear, you know. So what are you afraid of? Can you tell us a bit of what you're afraid of?
Feeling things.
And why are you afraid of feeling things? What's going to happen? What do you think will happen if you feel your feelings?
It's going to hurt. But then having repressed my feelings for so long that I don't know what's actually going to happen if I feel it.
Okay. Repressing themselves too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the sort of place we're in now. You feel that repressing them hurts, feeling them hurts. It's best not to do anything with it. But something's drawing you into doing something.
Do you feel angry? Yeah. Yeah. And how do you feel about feeling angry? I haven't been able to get in touch with it. I get about, 2 centimetres below the surface and then I shut myself down. Do you feel a little bit scared to feel angry? Yeah, that, and I also don't know how to. Because a lot of it's probably when you're very small. So maybe doing some things like how you would express anger when you're really small. Throwing things, bashing things, stamping, kicking.
So have you got a place where you could do that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good. Good. So there's a bit of a bush block or something there, somewhere. Good. So what I'll do is create a little corner of that location, and that's going to be your angry place. And what you do is get a heap of rocks, and a heap of glass, and a heap of like other things you can bash and make noises at and throw and whatever. And you just, every time you're angry, you just run down there and just yell and scream and throw until the anger's gone. And let yourself go even deeper than the anger after that. So once you've done that, you've thrown all that stuff around, now it starts going into the sadness of it. Like, does that make sense? So allow yourself to get into the sadness if you're expressing it. So when you're getting the anger, feel the anger. The problem with anger is you could stay in it the rest of your life. So you don't want to do that either, right? You don't want to use anger as an addiction, just like, you know, we use drugs as an addiction before. So, but we want to actually express the anger because it's been suppressed. So it needs to be experienced and felt. So let yourself feel it and let yourself go to that little place in your yard or whatever, and just let yourself experience it completely, but also ask yourself what you're afraid of every time you're angry. And then write about that when you come out of that anger. Does that make sense? What will happen is when you write about it, you will start acknowledging and opening up parts of your soul that are holding the grief. And there's quite a bit of grief. Yeah.
I feel like I'm going too far. But you know, not just like my parents.
Well, what you do is you make a cardboard cutout of your parents, right? And do it that way. But don't stab your parents, no. You'll get into trouble with that, you know. You get into trouble with God there, and also.
If you've got the emotion in you where you really feel you'd like to stab them, to express that in a safe way, it's got to be done.
Yeah.
Letting go, how do you feel about God? Yeah. I thought I was fine, but I realised just a little while ago that the growing up in that college, and then, you know, I found out that really it never felt like.
Yeah.
So it, you know, I guess I had trust issues with God because God wasn't in that supposed religion.
Yeah. You certainly will have some trust issues with God. And again, you can express them to God. Because God can handle anything you can throw at Him. Yeah. So when you feel angry with God, express it directly to God. When you feel sad about God not being around you during this whole thing, express that to God too. So this is part of this is about opening up to God. You find that when you do open up to God, you'll be able to also express your emotions like that. At the moment, there's just a big fear in you that there's this. The fear is that there's this huge mess inside, and you'll never get to the bottom of it. But the truth is that you will get to the bottom of it quite rapidly when you let yourself feel the fear that you feel about it. Because actually, what I can feel in you and Mary can feel too, is you have the capacity of experiencing your emotions quite well.
I also have the capacity to shut myself down really well.
Everyone has the capacity to experience quite well. Generally, also has a good capacity to shut down quite well too.
That's been the problem. I start to feel it and bang, no.
So when you say I can't go there, straight away, like write about why you can't go there. Does that make sense? Let yourself think about why you can't go there. And I said this today to everyone that this process is a lot about undoing the blockages to feelings. You actually have a very sensitive soul and you will actually feel very well once you start. The problem is just undoing the blockages that have been placed there by your parents and you know, this abusive environment that you live in. Does that make sense? And that's the key, is just allow yourself to keep plugging away at these blockages and seeing what the fears are. And then allowing yourself, one of those blockages is not allowing yourself to feel anger, as Mary pointed out. So allow yourself to experience the anger.
Ahora se va a cortar porque el vídeo se corta y continúa sin pararse ni nada, ni introducción en el siguiente.
And you will find you'll connect to your information very rapidly, I think. Yeah. Information very rapidly, I think. Yeah. All right. Let's see right now. Thank you very much. You want to start? For a second. We've got my reach. And we've got 5 more minutes before 3 o'clock. So everyone's got what they feel is a shortish example that we can talk about, or should we stop now and then have a break?
Está hablando de hacer el corte para descansar.
Stop now and have a break. Well, Stephen, you've got a...
Just a question.
Sure.
Pero antes hay una pregunta.
Just regarding the law of attraction, when wanting to get the difference between when I see something, or when a parent sees something reflected from a child.
Algo que le refleja el hijo al padre, o sea, por un hijo, que sería mejor aquí, reflejado por su hijo.
That's the law of attraction of the parent reflecting what's in the parent.
Yeah.
Now, what in the situation when my law of attraction brings me something from an adult or from a circumstance? Just an example in my own life, when I was like in my late teens, early 20s, I would go out surfing. My mother would often voice to me this fear that she had about sharks and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so I'm just trying to get clear, that's my law of attraction, my mother is saying that to me. How does that relate to the child saying something to the adult in the reverse situation?
It's always both people's law of attraction, obviously, but the fact that your mother is saying it to you is her fear. that she's saying it to you. If you didn't feel fear about going surfing, but she was projecting fear on you, then it's obviously just her law of attraction. If you don't feel the feelings she's actually reflecting to you, then it's her feelings, not yours. And this is how, like, I know in my own interactions, whether it's somebody else's feelings or my own too. Because you get to a point in your own progression where you've dealt with a lot of your emotions, and somebody will still come to you with something, and you will not feel anything from it, and so you know that it is their law of attraction.
Okay, so there's, if I'm not feeling anything that, then it may have, let's see.
The feeling you may have had with your mother then, which would have been your law of attraction, is I have to do what my mother thinks, even though she's crazy and she thinks that I'm going to get eaten by a shark. That would have been the feeling you would have had.
So I need to look at my feeling of annoyance or whatever about
exactly. Obviously, when I said just earlier, it's not anybody's, it's never half of the person or one person's law of attraction. Every single thing that happens is due to the combined law of attraction of every single person involved. But what we often do is we say, oh, well, if my mum was angry, that means that I was angry. No. If your mum was afraid, does that mean I was afraid? No. Because you've got to feel what your emotions were in that transaction. So if your mum projects fear at you and you got angry, then there is some emotion inside of you that you're denying at that point as well. Does that make sense? That this law of attraction your mum telling you is going to help sort out if you let it. So in every single interaction, our law of attraction is that both of our law of attractions operating in harmony with each other to trigger something in each one, or even to trigger some truth, or even acknowledging the truth in each one. It doesn't necessarily have to trigger one. So there might have been a truth you needed to face in the issue, and that is you don't need to do what your mum wants. And that's an emotion that you're still really dealing with in a lot of ways in your own life. You're working your way through that. Having to do what the woman wants.
yeah. There's been a number of things related to that where I felt like I had to do whatever my parents said.
Yeah. Yeah. And so mum projects fear of you and she's afraid. You automatically felt that you have to stop surfing and you didn't want to stop surfing. So you get angry. So allow yourself to feel what's underneath that. There's a feeling of, I have to do what mum says. So look at that emotion underneath that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
But her projecting fear doesn't mean you're afraid. So her saying to you, I'm afraid of you getting into a shark, doesn't mean that you feel afraid of getting into a shark. But it will mean that there is something inside of you that can trigger that you will need to release.
Especially if I'm feeling something as a result of that.
Especially if you're feeling something. So if you feel a twinge of frustration, anger, annoyance, any of those emotions, straight away you know, I didn't feel something in that transaction.
I was just going to say, if you were 5 and you were saying to your mum, I'm afraid of sharks, then that would be her emotion. But as you're older, the lower attraction channel.
Aquí la matización de María, muy importante, ¿no? Porque si es un niño más pequeño, puede estar sintiendo el miedo que tiene a los tiburones la madre, pero ese miedo es de la madre, no del niño pequeño. Cuando eres mayor ya es otra cosa, que es más el caso que le comentaban aquí de adolescente. Vale.
All right, what we'll do now is have a break for half an hour or so, and we'll come back and stop after there. Myself, obviously Tristan's my son, he's my eldest son. So for those of you who haven't met him, this is Tristan Miller. And what I wanted to do is just work through, show you some of the emotions that myself and Tristan have worked through together. And what actually happens now when I'm working through emotions, even though Tristan's 24 years old. So we want to discuss some of those issues together. And my beautiful Mary is the way to sit. So what we'd like to do firstly is just, I was going to let Tristan talk about some of the things that have happened during his childhood from his perspective. So that you can get an idea of what kinds of things he's had to work his way through. And then I'll try to look at things from my law of attraction perspective.
Alright then. So my past. Yay. If you didn't already know, when I was born to when I was 18, I was in a religion. I was Jehovah's Witness. My dad was an elder in a congregation, and my mom was pretty avid Jehovah's Witness, and our family were very respectable. Kind of thing going on. Thank you. And a lot of my life, I remember as a kid getting smacked a lot because there was a feeling, there's a saying in the Bible that to use your rod on your child, and being willing to help them learn. And there's a lot of emotion about being smacked in life that was very unnecessary. Times when I wanted to get some sugar out of the sugar jar, and it really tested my mother's emotions. So got smacked at that time. And also, when while in the congregation, I was sometimes I would speak up or be what they consider naughty. If fatherless, then even the kids here have been today, and I really like seeing the kids running around and talking about this stuff because it's just been awesome. I used to be taken out the back and then smacked and then brought back in once the kids were gone. The dad getting that one. And there was a lot of anger and a lot of angst about the fact that I feel like I should not express myself at all, especially when it came to God. Big emotions around that. My big emotions I felt came, well, I don't know if they came from this time, but the bigger of attraction events happened to me when Dad and Mum actually split up when I was about 14. That was quite interesting at the time because at the time I felt it was like a bit of a game that's going away on holiday and me and my brother get presents. For the first time in our lives, we were given video games, and it was hard to be upset that Dad was leaving when we had a Nintendo 64 just given to us on the same day. Games. I didn't understand what was going on, and until I was actually living with Mum without Dad there, that I understand how my life had actually changed. And I didn't understand why, and I didn't understand how, and I was very confused. And then later on, it got to the point where it felt like I was being pulled between two parents, and also between my religion. In the religion, it's not really a rule, but more of a thing where if someone is scholarship or disassociated, you should really spend time with them. And I felt under pressure, I don't know how much pressure that actually gave me, but I felt under pressure to be spending less time with Dad, talking less with Dad about God and about those kind of things. And that was really hard because Dad loved talking about God and he loved talking about the Bible, and I felt like I was basically being bad to go towards God by listening to my father about these things. It got to a point where Dad would have deeper meanings. I have deeper meanings with me and my brother, and nearly everything about him I really didn't want to be around. I'd be around Dad, and like what he said made sense, and then I'd go home and then I felt like everything he said was a lie. And what my mum now was saying makes sense, and then that would go to Dad, and then everything that was said there was constant back and forth, and I was so confused about what was actually the truth and what was not the truth. And what was Mum saying about the dad was that the truth? Was what Dad's saying about his stuff and what he actually had to do is like the truth. And in the end, I decided what it came to lying to me, and I decided not to trust either one about anything. At that point, and I still have some emotions to do, I suppose, both with Dad about trusting them and trusting what they say to me. It got to a point where I was so confused that basically I was really angry that I had to go through this stuff and no one was helping me, and Caleb was trying to get me to help him as well, and I really got very confused and probably a little bit like Caleb was much younger than me. And we came to a decision. I felt there was pressure from the religion and my mother. We came to this decision to actually cut off talking and spending time with our father. Before then, we would actually go to his place and that kind of thing. But I actually called him up and told him we would no longer spend any time with him whatsoever, and that he may still call us, but we will not call him. I did that when the age of 15, and my brother was 13. At the time I felt really good about the decision because it was like cutting a problem out of my life where I didn't have to deal with it. I could get rid of this problem. That I don't have to deal with my relationship with Dad, and Mum will be all fine, and religion will be all fine, and we'll all be fine. But then the actual phone conversation when we did that was the most harrowing. I think it was about 3 hours of conversation and having. And then Dad's asking why. We don't really know why. We just feel it has to be done. And then Dad was so distraught that he ended up travelling all the way up from where he was, and also talking to us for another few hours. And it was basically one of the hardest days of my life. I still have not processed through that day. I still feel like I still haven't processed any remorse about that. I still have anger towards that I need to go through. As 17, and by that time, my life had got pretty cagey, and I felt like the religion was killing me, or that I was killing me, or something inside me was dying, and slowly. And it hurt so much that I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. I spent days in a small granny flat on a computer, and I was sick nearly every day. Sometimes the sickness would be so scary and so painful that I thought I was dying. Which is a weird thing for a 17-year-old to go through. I felt like a man, which was hard. I had a friend come from another state, and her family will stay with us. And she started being nice to me. Like, it's the first time that someone outside of my religion has been nice to me. Before that, I've been.
Es ella, la amiga, la que empezó a ser amable con él.
Tortured emotionally by nearly everyone around me. But then I went to a new school. and I made new friends, and I actually know that people outside the religion can actually be good people. And before that, I thought that everyone outside the religion was somehow pathetic, and I was somehow better than them. And it really slammed my whole life, how I look about my life. I realised that at the time I started pretending to be a person to these people so that they would like me. Instead of, and at that same time I was pretending to the religion and my family that I was a different kind of person, so they would. So I was pretending to be rebellious and a little dangerous on one side, and the other side I was the good Christian boy who everyone respected. And somehow I kept that going for about 2 months before I realised that I was lying somewhere, and that almost everything I was saying was a lie. Because of that, I started believing some lies, and I didn't know what the truth was. And I got so confused in the end that I had just a mental breakdown. The whole question of who I was just came through, and I just stopped going to school, I stopped going outside my room, I stopped doing everything. For about 2 months, I was in that room and I did not come out. And that was really hard. And in the end, I decided to leave the religion. I was still believing in it. And they believed that if God does not believe you're worthy, then you will be basically Armageddon came, you would be executed by God. You would be, what's the word, God's boy, basically. So I felt like leaving was basically a suicide, and I did it. I lost all my friends, all the ones that I thought cared about me. I lost a large part of my family that I spent time with that I thought loved me. And I was asked also to leave the house by Mum. And I ended up calling up Dad, who I hadn't talked to for years, and he accepted me over straight away. And I spent 2 months at Dad's persistence through a lot of that stuff. And at the same time, though, as soon as I had made that decision to get out of the religion, I was jumping for joy. I was actually skipping and singing again. And doing all the things that I like to do, and before then I was basically nothing. Then I ended up living with Dad in SA, and Dad organised a job for me, and he looked after my expenses along with Kate, who moved in with Dad before that. Dad in SA had, even when sometimes when I didn't have a job, SA is Australia. Sometimes when I did not have a job, sometimes when Dad wanted us to help us deal with our emotions, he gave us vast amounts of living expenses, and he gave us housing to live in, and we were not grateful at all. Using Dad completely at that time, and we didn't seem to realise. We were pretty happy because we were learning about ourselves, and I was having a lot of fun because I got out of religion where you can't do anything, so I started doing as much as I could. But at the same time, even now, I still have this emotion where I'm still ungrateful for some of the things that Dad has given me and shown me. And a large part of my life with Dad and SA was him paying my bills and me just like giving. And so, and right now I'm doing that. I still feel bad about that. On a side note, when Dad told me that he felt he was Jesus, that wasn't a big deal to me at all. A lot of people have asked me, how do you feel about Dad being Jesus? I go, it's not a big deal at all to me. It's like someone coming up to me and saying, hi, I'm John, and I go, okay, I'll trust that until you show me otherwise. So Dad comes up to me and goes, yeah, oh, is that Subway? And I said, yes, I feel like I'm Jesus. And I've gone through these motions and having memories, and I'm going, okay. Of course, I can't, until you prove it to me, I can't really believe it wholeheartedly. But it does put into light a lot of the facts that Mum used to say, don't do that, that wouldn't be what Jesus did, or Jesus will be watching you, or Jesus loves you, and all those kind of things, this race stuff, and it's like, yeah, okay. And that's some of the things, especially when Dad and I broke up, where Dad took us to movies that she didn't want us to watch. She said, Jesus wouldn't let you watch those movies. He took us. So I haven't been worried about that being Jesus. And the more I've dealt with my emotions, the more I've actually accepted it without any proof as in healings and stuff like that. I go through my own stuff and I just realise that he is, and it's not a big deal other than the fact that I know that if I want some truth, the best person to turn to will be my dad. And
si quiero algo de la verdad, o sea, en ese sentido, sobre la verdad, sobre verdades.
I can always count that if I'm desiring to get into emotion and have that actual desire for it, that the first and best thing to be doing would be Dad. Call up Dad. And it's yeah. Dad decided about 2 years ago to come live here in Queensland, and at the time I was living in his houses and working in Woolworths. And I decided, because I knew that he would be away for 6 months and there'd be in a bit of a loopage, that I would actually want to start dealing with my emotions properly. I actually want to deal with things and talk about and desire God. So I said, yes, I'm going to come with you. And that was a little bit, I don't know if it was freaked out by it or not. I just thought, wow, I didn't expect that. And so in the end, the actual moving process was hard because Dad was in a different country and I had to organise, I felt I had to organise it all. And there were so many times I could cry, so many times I could process. The drive home to Queensland with Dad in the car was the most triggering thing I've ever done in my life, and I still didn't process a bit of it. I could have gone through so much anger, but I didn't. And it was, well, I look back on it now and just going, that was just so stupid of me. But in the end, rocked up to his place. Dad went off to around the world on this tour, and I went crazy. I went through huge amounts of unlearned emotions, I went through huge amounts of how I felt about myself. I got to a point where I went through some I don't know if it was grateful or some stuff about me, there was some anger there and fear. And I realized
aquí creo que se refiere sobre emociones de estar solo y cosas así. Aparte de tener tiempo a solas, creo que ha dicho también eso. Más bien.
I realized emotionally I should get a job. And a week later I had a job. And that was so weird for me because that was the first time I actually processed emotion and had a feeling and it actually happened straight away. And I felt pretty good about that. And it was pretty good. You can never underestimate when you put yourself out there to trigger your emotions. I suggest doing it as much as possible. It's the only way you're going to get to stuff that you never had before. You never. That you have. And so I got to a point where I realized I needed to move out of that zone. That happened only like a few months ago. And this has been the most horrible experience of my life emotionally. I've gone through, and I just had a full-fledged desire to connect to God and make it about me, not about me in relation to what my dad is or what my dad's doing. I've spent days, hours a day, crying and processing and feeling and screaming and shouting. And the people that I've been staying with have been really wonderful about it. And also, sometimes it's triggered them and they've gone through their stuff as well, so it's been quite good. It's been amazing. I've processed through much more stuff in the last 2 months than I've done in my entire life. And I feel really like some days when I get through an emotion, I feel amazing. And I can express that as best as I can. And I have a lot of fun. People seem to have a lot of fun. And it's good. And it's very human as the stuff to do with. I got some big self-disgust with myself. Still with women. And I've got some big anger still to deal with men. So as I go through that, it's been pretty good. I don't want to stop processing each time up and mental side.
I was just wondering whether, with Tristan saying all of that, I'll talk about some of the law of attraction from my perspective. Obviously, you can see straight away that Tristan's had quite a difficult life in some respects, right? And one of the emotions that I felt a lot was once I came to a memory of all of these different truths that I just now remember, one of the first emotions that I had was a terrible feeling of guilt about how I brought up my sons. And so particularly how much I use corporal punishment as a way of controlling their behaviour. Which is a big issue that Tristan had to work through outside of his table.
I still feel that to get better, I have to suffer. Yeah. So, so I had to work through lots of feelings of guilt and shame. All compensation type emotions that you work through as a parent. And even events like when my boys phoned me to talk about their, when they told me that they couldn't speak to me again. And I went through some pretty big emotions there. And looking back on it now, I can see what all the law of attraction was for myself. But I also did see at the time why they wanted to not contact me and spend any time with me anymore. There was just so much pressure on them that about me, because I left the religion that if you leave the religion, basically you're condemned to death, basically by the religion. And you're treated as if, in fact, they encourage you to encourage people in the religion to treat you as if you've died. And so you like walk along the street and all the people who used to be your friends would just walk straight past you and look at you, but not acknowledge you. And so many would walk along, they'd see you and go across the other side of the road and walk past you. And things like that. And my own family finished up doing that with me as well. This was all happening at the same time. And then of course, my boys started getting lots and lots of pressure to not speak with me and not communicate with me. And, I can see now that, in fact, that I had to get into the state where with my own emotions. And so that was all my law of attraction. So it even saddens me now when I hear Tristan say, that he still feels guilt about his decision to not speak with me. When I see it quite strongly as my own law of attraction. So there was a lot of events that occurred all the way through my own processing that I had to work my way through in terms of how I treated my boys. The kinds of things that I did with them. The things that have hurt even more are not so much the corporal punishment issues, but the issues where it's a lot more insidious damage to my sons. And one of those pieces of insidious damage was when I taught my boys that you would always be conciliatory to a woman. So no matter what the woman does, and no matter what the woman says, and no matter how she treats you, you need to continue to be conciliatory to her. And I've only recently, about a year and a half ago, probably worked through the core of those emotions. And what I'm noticing now is each time I work through a core emotion, Tristan within a few days, even if he's on the opposite side of the world, works through that emotion. And what I found is like that core emotion for me has taken me nearly 1 year, but with Tristan it takes him only a few months or less so to deal with it than it takes me. And so what I'm noticing is the more I release within myself,
the easier it is on Tristan in his dealing with and releasing process. And the same goes with my other son, Caleb, who's not consciously choosing to, at the moment, to actually release emotion. He is still releasing emotion as I'm dealing with emotion. And so that's, in effect, that's happening automatically. So there's been lots of guilt, lots of shame as a father to learn my way through. Trying to relate to many of you who feel like ashamed of yourself as parents and the things that you've done to your children to control them or to keep them what you thought was bringing them up appropriately. And there were also many emotions that I taught them through my own behaviour. And I think they are, from my perspective, they've been the most damaging to my child, to my sons. My son's process. Yeah, because it's quite obvious that when you smack a child, the child feels bad about that, and the child feels it's wrong. Right? Quite different to have this insidious emotion of always wanting to please them and you don't really know why inside of yourself. And so I've had a lot of emotions to work through about the kind of damage I've done to my boys in causing them to act certain ways that they were unconscious of at the time. And so, like, Tristan's had a number of girlfriends, and so quite a number of them have treated him in quite unloving ways, but he's felt like he's deserved that because of my own example. And so I've had to work through a lot of those kind of emotions. What the beautiful thing, though, is between us is that as I work through an emotion, he shortly after works through the emotion in a lot shorter time frame, and it also brings us a lot closer together. So now we're like brothers.
Our actual friends, instead of being fearful, I had so much fear. I'm thinking around Dad that I used to act like a child, I'd start talking back. Baby talk around him and not really understand why.
So now we've got this relationship, it's more like brothers, and like I feel he's my brother, not my son, and Tristan feels like I'm his brother. And so we do things together and enjoy each other's company just like brothers would. And also, because we're both passionate about dealing with emotions now, Tristan and myself both find it quite easy to work through emotions now. So that's really a beautiful blessing that's come from all the changes that we've had to work through.
Really good.
So there's been a lot of difficulties, and during the time that I was dealing with a lot of my own emotions. Obviously, when you as a parent deal with your emotions, then your children are not receiving the projection. It's when you hold on to the emotion, your children are receiving the projection. And so the time that I first started dealing with my emotions was 11 or 12 years ago. And from that time on, it was easier on the boys to actually make their own choices. But 5 or 6 years ago, when I really firmly started dealing with my own emotions, there were huge changes in the boys in terms of what they thought they could do, how they felt they could live their lives, and how
we express ourselves.
Yeah.
And we could express ourselves.
Yeah. So just my dealing with those emotions and owning everything caused some major changes within my son without him even realising what was going on at the time. Do you want to talk about a bit about the girls? One of Tristan's, obviously both parents are here, so one of Tristan's emotions is about women. One man, one of them. Obviously, I've had some really big women issues to do with in my life, right? And it's only quite recently that I've come to understand what they're all about. But as I've dealt with those, Tristan's life with his relationships has changed quite markedly. So, very markedly, you tell me, the other.
Sure, I was going to say firstly, I usually only attracted two types of women. Usually there's one who is glamorous, everyone loves them, they were beautiful, everyone cared about them, and that kind of thing. And then I get the second type, which are down-to-earth girls who are still very beautiful, but not very conscious of it, and downplay themselves a lot, and who feel quite bad about themselves. In both types, I'm always attracted to either them physically or emotionally feeling horrible about themselves, and I'm supposed to make it better. So a lot of my earlier...
Aquí yo creo que es Marín. Siempre me siento atraído por ellas, dice, bien sea físicamente o bien emocionalmente, porque se sienten horribles y yo se supone que las mejoraré, ¿no? Y así.
Having relationships with have been me trying to fix their lives or fix what's been happening. I try to... One or two girls that had horrible home lives, and I tried to fix them. It was just really hard to do for a teenager. So I suppose I could just go through. The three biggest ones, the ones that I thought were major parts of my life. So I'll just go through.
Sure, because I'm still here.
Want to hear it? The first girlfriend, who was just after I got our church witnesses, I felt unhated and unwelcomed by her father. I was liked by her mother, but tolerated by her siblings. I basically felt unwelcome to be around her. And as if I'm somehow far lesser than what she deserved. She always needed me. She needed my time, my energy, my space. She needed me to go towards her, and I felt like good about that. I felt good to be needed. She felt bad about herself and how she looked and how her soul was. So I spent most of my time helping her see how good her soul was and how good she looked, and all those kind of things. In the end, I just was had a hole inside myself and I wanted to fill it up. So the best way to do that was getting these emotions from a girl and seeing her grow and thinking it's me really doing it and hoping that it's me doing it. And when she didn't grow, that's something wrong with me. And all that kind of stuff. A year passed and I was changing emotionally. And I realized she hated me. I realized that most of my relationship with her, she didn't actually like me that much at all. And as her need intensified and I stopped giving her things, it got pretty bad, and then I just had to end it. And so, at the same time as remember that all of these bad things about relationship, there were good points in the relationship too. But what we would consider average relationships. Most people would consider average relationships. And the second girl was a bit different. She was quite smart, and I wanted to basically help her get through her emotions, because by this time I was starting to deal with mine, and I projected huge amounts of anger and need on her to deal with her stuff. And then she started, well, she wanted to, in the end, she just started arguing back, because I was basically pushing her to be something that she didn't want to be. And in the end, it got quite interesting. So I dealt with enough emotions to realise I was trying to change her instead of being accepting of her. And after that, after so much crying out, I ended up breaking that relationship up too. The third major relationship that I had, she felt pretty bad about her work, and she compared herself to me on every level and felt that I was completely, not completely better, but I felt that I was better than her and I deserved someone better than her, someone that looked better than her, someone that acted better than her. And I was spent my time most of the time trying to make her feel that she does deserve me, and she does deserve this kind of relationship. In this one, I actually felt that I got someone who shared in my want of emotional releasing, even though she at the time went through some stuff and not others. So I felt that although I was still being super Tristan, the white knight, and trying to help the girl, I was doing it far less of it. I spent a lot more time owning the emotion instead of actually projecting it on her. And in the end, it went back and forth. She broke up with me quite a few times, and by the end of it, I was just thinking, this has got to stop. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep making these choices. So I decided to go for that. There was one last emotion that I didn't want to go through because I felt that it would end if I dealt with it, and I did. And then I ended up romantically disconnecting from the girl, even though we're still pretty good friends. And in the end, I feel pretty good about the relationship because it got me through so much of my stuff. And I did feel like I had some sort of love, even much like this before.
So you can see the pattern that Tristan had too with women was, and this is very much related to his law of attraction with his mum, is that there was a lot of wanting to please, and so you can see I also had an emotion of wanting to please women. So I taught Tristan a lot of these things, and then because his mum was a person who wanted to be pleased, and obviously that was doubled, the injury sort of doubled up. So he ended up with this huge emotion of just wanting to please and be considered through the women all the time. And when I dealt with my emotion about he was drawn into a relationship pretty much straight after that helped him deal with a lot of his emotion back. So you can see that again, there's this linkage, even though Chris is 24 now, there's this linkage between my emotion, me dealing with my emotion, and then Tristan dealing with his emotion.
And the more I want to deal with my emotion, the stronger that linkage seems to be. The quicker it happens and the better it happens.
So if I deal with something today, oftentimes with now that Tristan's in this space where he wants to deal with his emotion, if I deal with something today, generally within the next day or so, Tristan will ring me up and say, "Oh, I've been dealing with this, what's going on, what have you done recently?" Because a lot of times, exactly what I've just dealt with is exactly what he needs to connect to.
As parents, as you're doing through your stuff, like seriously, you don't know how much help you're giving your kids. Not only for like how much pressure you take off their shoulders, but also as you go through your stuff, when they want to go through their stuff, all they have to do is ask you, and you can just tell them, and they go, "Oh, good, let's do that then."
So that makes it a lot easier. It's a lot harder if the parent doesn't deal with their emotion and the child then has to do work through theirs, which is what many of you are facing, right, in your own lives now. If the parents are not, your parents maybe not working through their emotion, and you're having to work through yours, that's a very, very hard job. So you can, as a parent, one of the best ways, rather than going to your guilt about your children, one of the best ways that you can help your children, now that you know all this, is to actually start processing your emotions. As fast as you can possibly process it, without guilt, without judgment, without shame and those kind of emotions. As you do that, then it helps your child straight away. It helps you, no matter what age they are, it helps them straight away. So one thing I've worked my way through, I've prayed a lot to God about forgiveness and repentance about how I've treated my children, and to have to work through a lot of that emotionally. As I work through that emotionally, there's been quite big changes in my sons, and then as I've dealt with each emotion, because of the connection that's broken then between myself and my sons in terms of the codependent connections, they then deal with the emotion very rapidly after. So it's a very good thing to keep in mind, I think, those things.
Bueno, ¿qué tal? Para no dormirnos, ¿queréis comentar algo? Qué pena que se oiga tan mal el vídeo. También se ve un poco mal.
Pues por mí podemos seguir. Está muy interesante, Iván.
Si no hay...
Sí, sigamos porque ni me molesta el ruido ni tengo sueño, es perfecto. Es demasiado bueno.
Muy cautivador esto de ver las vidas ajenas, cómo solucionan los detalles también. Bueno, Claudia, ¿ha venido ya el tsunami o estáis...? A lo mejor está silenciada. Se tendría que... Vale, sigamos.
No, estoy acá y llegué. Estoy demorada nomás. Sí, escuché. ¿Está bien? Seguimos, sí.
Vale. Yo me estoy haciendo la digestión. Esto tengo que respirar más. pero he tomado solo un poco de ensalada, pero aún así luego no tenía que haber tomado otras cosas, una galleta o dos. Bueno, pero bien, tengo que acordarme de respirar. Entonces, vamos a ver preguntas.
Is there any questions you'd like to ask us?
What was the last version that you had to work with? That was something great.
So what was the last emotion Chris had to work through with the girl?
It was actually an emotion about soulmates. I felt that my last relationship was with my soulmate, and I felt that she, because she's my soulmate, I must be as best as I can, go through all my stuff, and everything would be better, and I should stay with her as much as possible and try my hardest in the relationship. It actually came from Dad.
It's emotion of self-blame.
This has been the best thing that mine. Dad has actually said to me, this is something I want to say to anyone who thinks about soulmates all the time and puts a lot of energy into it. If someone treated me, would you put up with someone treating you badly if they are not your soulmate and you know it? And why do you put up with someone who is your soulmate and doing the same thing? So in the end, I had to actually go through a whole lot of emotions, like I just had to say to myself, I wouldn't put up with this usually.
So it's emotion of worthiness, really, that was working through, with what he believed was his soulmate. And that's very much my emotion to do, my loss of soulmate emotion that I had all my life. That's been such a powerful influence in my life all the way through. And I've had huge amounts of grief. I've got years and years and years of crying to look at those kind of issues with my soulmate before I even met my soulmate. So I had these huge longings for the soulmate all my life, and these huge emotions of grief associated with the loss of her, which then got projected onto my sons. And so Tristan's had to deal with a lot of those projected emotions, which meant that he felt so bad about himself when it came to his relationships with women. And particularly if it was one he believed was his soulmate, that he would not actually stop behaviour that was unloving towards himself. And that's exactly the issue I have to process with. Any other questions?
What I'm understanding,
It must be up, so just keep it straight up.
what I'm understanding, you're actually processing emotions before you had the realisation that you were Jesus.
Yes, I started processing emotions 7 years before I had the realisation of who I was. Mm-hmm. So I had to release huge amounts of fear, terror, lots of traumatic experiences all related to my first century life, but I didn't understand what they were. So what happened was when I started processing emotions, and I had a lot of memories of being nailed to wood, and being raped, and quite a lot of other memories associated with that I couldn't place because I couldn't remember the events of my current life. but they were memories that had these huge amounts of emotions associated with them. And so I had to, during that period, learn that I just had to process the emotion with the hope that someday in the future I would actually understand what it was about. And so the first 7 years of my emotional processing, I had no idea what emotions I was processing or why they were there. And I couldn't understand them at all, because all of them were about torture and abuse. And I couldn't understand any of them. So I just allowed myself to continue processing those emotions. And as I did that, I became more open emotionally. During that period, I got rid of lots of my terror and my fear. And once I got rid of quite a lot of my terror and my fear, that's when the other memories of why those original memories were there started coming to me. So while I had some memories, I had an event when I was 2 years of age where I trod on a nail that went straight through my foot. And then I had memories when I was in my 30s, still not aware of who I am, of being nailed to a wooden plank. And having a spear put through me and things like that, things that I just couldn't place. But they all had emotional content, so I had to just release the emotion. And I just trusted the process of releasing the emotion. And then I had other memories of torture, other torture events that happened in my life. And then rape-based events that happened in my life and the life of my soulmate. So I dealt with a lot of those emotions before I even knew who I was. And I had no idea why I was dealing with them. But I just knew that every time I released one of them, I felt better. So I knew that I just had to keep going. And so it was a very hard time, if you can imagine. During that time also, nobody would speak to me, my family wouldn't speak to me, my boys didn't speak to me for nearly 2 years. And so it was a very difficult time.
Would you call that faith?
Yeah, I suppose it is faith. It's a faith that, you know, in the end, everything will work out. I just knew that every emotion I dealt with, I felt better. So I had to just keep dealing with these emotions that I didn't quite understand. But they were in me, so I just had to accept they were in me, no matter what they were. And so that's what I did. I accepted they were in me, no matter what they were, and processed through some pretty intense emotions. Just like, for instance, the terror took 3 months. I had these fits twice a day that lasted a couple of hours at each time. The only way I could liken them was they were like cramps in my entire body. I'd be curled up on the floor because I couldn't move, trying to breathe. A couple of times I actually passed out and was taken to hospital. So, like, that was my terror experience, which lasted 3 months. And this was before I knew what I was doing. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. It just was happening. And so that happened for the first 6 or 7 years, and then probably 6 years. And then once I worked through lots of those emotions of fear about my own identity, that's when I was ready to start accepting the other memories that actually told me my own identity. It's a bit like all of your childhood is locked up inside of you. All of your memories of your childhood are locked up inside of you. And when you allow yourself to feel them emotionally, you will remember them. What I want to make is that although I wasn't there for like the first bits of data processing, seeing that processing through when I was living with him and when I was around him, that made it much easier to get through my own stuff later on. There's a lot of times when you're dealing through fear and grief and anger, and as you know, you're pretty scared about what's happening to you and how uncontrollable it is and how uncontrollable it is and how loud it is and what you're doing as a person. And your kids will go through their stuff later on and realise that that's what you were doing and feel a whole lot more, I suppose, faith and feel better in themselves about doing the same thing and knowing that that's what will help them as well. So obviously Tristan's seen a lot of changes in me during that period of time. When I left the relationship I was in with his mother, I was physically, like, constantly shaking, like I had Parkinson's disease. So I was 33 years old and shaking like this all the time. So if you picture it, like, that was the amount of fear that was in me. I was actually now, and people would always comment about what are you shaking for? And I'd say, I don't know, it's just how I am. I had that through the stages of 17 days. Yeah. So I was so locked up with emotion that started coming out. Once I was in a space where I was by myself, I could actually allow myself to feel it. So for many of you, being in an alone space is actually a great benefit to actually deal with emotions. In an alone space, you don't get projections. So while I was alone for a lot of that period of time, and felt quite lonely all of that time, I didn't receive any projections from people, so that was a real blessing. I could actually feel my emotions. I was there right at the start of the project. I want to get pretty passionate. There was one time actually when Tristan came to stay with me for a while, live with me for a while, and 3 months later I had to ask him to move out because he was actually trying to shut me down with my emotions. And this was about probably 4 years ago, I suppose. Yeah, it was pretty late. It was pretty a year or so before we left the company. Yeah. So I invited him to come and stay because he wanted to deal with his emotions. But within a few months, I could feel his projections so strongly that I said, we're going to have to live in separate houses. So he moved next door. And then I could feel free to deal with my own emotions. And now what I'm doing is working through dealing with my emotions no matter who's around and how much projection I get. So now I can get into emotions quite easily no matter who is around and how much projection I have from them.
Creo que aquí he dicho como que puedo asentarme bien en las emociones, algo así. Y por eso está aquí esto que un poquito mal también. Pero bueno, luego lo... Sí, pues ahora parece que ya ha acabado el tema de esto. Ahora hay ejemplos muy majos también de padres e hijos. ¿Necesitáis un descanso para ir al servicio o lo que sea? Bueno, yo me voy un momento. Bueno, así que nada, esto lo habéis comprobado además en vuestras propias vidas con los hijos, que se sienten las emociones y a poco, en un grado mucho o poco, se ve cómo cambian las vidas. O la facilidad para experimentar emociones y para enfadarse más, mejor, de los hijos o cosas así.
Sí, súper claro, y cómo de alguna forma es en la historia de Tristan, digamos, visible todo lo que implica llegar a creer algo. En un momento él dice no sabía cuál era la verdad. Porque él también empezó a mentir como para no vivir la emoción de la desaprobación y la exclusión que tanto nos asusta, ¿no?
Que es esta parecido
más en una religión.
Un colapso mental parecido ahora con globalmente está pasando entre la familia, que es la televisión y la sociedad, con el tema de las inoculaciones y la creencia en que la enfermedad viene de bichitos que nos pueden hacer no sé qué, que eso es básicamente la enfermedad, en vez de que sea lo que está pasando, que se está sanando la humanidad a la fuerza, por ley, y tienen que salir toda la mierda que tenemos en el alma acumulada, y eso es la enfermedad que está pasando. Pero fíjate que el colapso mental ese de la diferencia entre la verdad, que creo yo de verdad, tengo que fingir una cosa para un lado, la cantidad de familias que se han roto, pero bueno, perdona que te interrumpí. Es que...
No, para nada, Iván, no, imagino, ¿no? Y aparte agradezco porque siempre aprendí de vos a ampliar un poco la mirada. Yo en ese sentido, para mí siempre fue una invitación. No, lo que veía también es que, claro, con una religión que hablaba de la muerte, que es uno de los grandes miedos que tenemos, ¿no? Por la concepción de muerte que tenemos, y cómo era muy fuerte, claro, esta idea de a lo que te enfrentabas si te atrevieras a desobedecer. Hasta, bueno, un Dios castigador ni hablar, ¿no? Porque ya es como que ya no podés, o sea, te cae por todos lados, pero implacable, digamos, en quien supuestamente te ama o es Dios, como que ya yo sentía así en ese momento como una desfiguración total del amor, entre comillas. Él mismo te condenará, dijo, o ¿cómo decía? No dijo condenará, no anoté.
Sí, que es lo que está pasando que es gracioso, con el Estado, con la medicina y
Claro.
Ese es el Dios que, ¿cómo te atreves a rebelarte? Te va a matar. Y bueno, y son ellos mismos, no te van a dejar trabajar si no te envenenas.
Exacto, sí.
Es gracioso.
Claro.
Bueno, pero no ibas por ahí, pero sí, luego vamos por ahí.
Claro, no, y justamente el poder, digo, de gobernar, o sea, en ese momento de como que ya todo termina siendo lo mismo, por decirte, bueno, acá es el miedo, de todas formas de miedo, hasta Dios es miedo. Entonces, como que terminás así, muy confundido, porque claro, abrirte a la otra posibilidad, o sea, en esta búsqueda de garantías y de seguridad terminaba siendo otra amenaza, ¿no? Entiendo el hecho de que Jesús ofreciera esa posibilidad a sus hijos y que hablara de Dios y que como que para todos un poco, lo siento ahora que experimento, y bueno, gracias a lo que estás diciendo un poco, que comenté al principio, cuando aparece la ira y el enojo, de que otra vez me vuelvo a esa encrucijada, ¿no? De qué sentir, si reprimir, que es lo que el mundo te enseña, huir, atacar, culpar, juzgar, todo lo que hablábamos un poco antes de empezar la conversación, o realmente confiar en que la ley de atracción, que todo el tiempo lo está diciendo Jesús, ¿no? La ley de atracción te ofrece esa oportunidad, también lo dijo Ranta el otro día, Mónica, es un regalo, está diseñado especialmente para desencadenar estas emociones, una invitación constante y ver esa oportunidad que tenemos. Claro, sí, sirvió muy ilustrativo, porque aparte, no sé si lo dije en este video o en otro, que lo tenemos a Jesús somos muy exigentes con él y su figura, ya de antaño, ¿no? Un poco. Entonces, de alguna manera hay como muchas expectativas. Y ahora que él contaba en estas descripciones que hace de lo fuerte que es asumir esta cuestión, a mí se me cortó el internet justo en la parte en que yo me volví a unir 2 veces en la llamada, pero la parte que le dice a Tristan, ¿sabes qué? Estoy sintiendo que soy Jesús, y Tristan le dice, bueno, tendrás que demostrarlo. Ahí se me cortó. Tardé unos minutos en volver. No, después la voy a recuperar. Pero imagino un poco que sí, es un poco todo lo que le decimos, ¿no? Siento que es un poco lo que todos le decimos a Jesús, ¿viste? En el mundo, hablo en general, en plural, vas a tener que demostrarlo. Y ponemos esas expectativas. Y yo descubro las expectativas cuando están ahí, cuando él dice, me pasé un año sin trabajar, casi en un nivel suicida de vida. Me pasó tal cosa, ahora que contó, me pasé un año temblando, como si tuviera Parkinson, o sea, todas esas cosas tan naturales que él vivió sin siquiera saber qué era todavía, qué era lo que estaba pasando y cómo invitan a la fe, tal cual. Y me ayudó un montón. Esa parte yo no pude, no pude acompañar, ya cuando me volví a las llamadas ya había pasado.
Sí, esto es muy gracioso, ¿no? Que es raro, ¿no? Que habiendo estado en la religión no le parezca tan raro que su padre le diga, oye, que soy este alma, soy Jesús. O sea, la realidad del alma es esa, ¿no? Y entonces, aquí decía eso simplemente. Es que lo mismo que si alguien se acerca y dice, hola, soy Juan. Supongo que se refiere a no sé si a un cualquier Juan o a un apóstol o algo así. Sí. Y dice, vale, confío en eso hasta que se demuestre lo contrario. Así que papá viene, me cuenta esto. Yo estaba en Subway, que no sé a lo que se refiere. Yo creo que puede ser la empresa de bocadillos, quizás.
Sí, es una sandwichería.
Sí, y me siento como si fuera...
una franquicia, sí.
Dice, y por supuesto, todas estas emociones sobre tener recuerdos de Jesús, me cuenta todo eso y yo le digo, vale, pero hasta que no me lo demuestres no lo puedo creer de todo corazón. Y luego todo esto está muy gracioso, que no sé si esto se te ha cortado ahí. Porque
eso no lo vi, no, justamente ahí me quedé.
Echa luz a muchos de los hechos que mamá solía decir, claro. Esto es muy cómico, que se supone que están escribiendo libros biográficos, todos ellos tarde o temprano, pero claro, no hagas eso decía la mamá, eso no sería lo que Jesús hizo o haría, ¿no? Eso no sería lo que Jesús haría, que es lo típico que dirían los cristianos, ¿no? Tienes que hacer lo que...
Claro.
Jesús te estará observando. Claro, entonces la broma de padre, o Jesús te ama, que le decía su madre, o sea, es como si dijera, tu papá te ama. Y es como, vale, claro, de acuerdo, claro, sí. Entonces eso es muy, muy gracioso.
Claro, y dice ahí, sigo leyendo, y alguna de las cosas, especialmente cuando papá y mamá rompieron, cuando papá nos llevó al cine, algo que ella no quería que viéramos, Jesús no quería que vieran esa película. Claro, mira todo lo que empezó a... Claro, se reía. Me acordaba que papá era no Jesús.
Una vida
Claro.
de mucho tragicómica a tope, la de Tristan.
Sí, 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 muy fuerte. Incluso a Caleb nunca lo vi hasta ahora. Si bien puede elegir, claro, vivir un proceso, no hace falta que lo comenten y lo compartan, pero no, nunca lo vi.
No, yo tampoco,
sí.
Creo que no, y están diciendo que aunque él no esté en este tema, o sea, él es músico, el Caleb, en otro lado pasa de todo, creo, pero dice que pasa por las mismas cosas, aunque no quiera, de liberaciones emocionales.
Sí. Gracias, Iván. Yo iba a ir, anoté como para volverme a este punto justamente.
Porque aquí esto ya sí lo escuchaste a partir de lo que hemos visto.
Sí, sí, ahí justo cuando dice mudarse a Queensland, no sé cómo se pronuncia, ahí volví la llamada, y es unos segundos.
Sí, estamos...
¿Querés descansar un rato? Bueno, como yo no tengo el registro, a mí me figura que hace 12 minutos volví a la llamada. O sea, yo no tengo registro de tiempo total.
No, si ahora, sí, mientras comentamos cosas así, descanso.
Ok, dale.
No sé si alguien quiere más comentar algún saludo que queréis hacer especial a alguno de los millones de suscriptores que tenemos, que seguramente os han escrito para mandaros flores y cosas. Marisol, Ana de Venezuela.
Bueno, yo en esto de estar solo también estoy viviendo ahora. Me pasó hace poquito de venir al sur y estar en la casa de Ana Pilar, y pese a su hospitalidad y al hecho de, bueno, recibir, porque siento que de alguna manera implica una resignación de un espacio personal, a veces con gusto, a veces puede ser también producto de una adicción, de una necesidad, de un trueque, pero bueno, ella me había acogido en su hogar, pero yo todo el tiempo vine con esta predisposición a la soledad un poco, y como dice Jesús, al final está bueno ese espacio de desnudez en el que tampoco hay un otro que interfiera, como decíamos con Marisol al principio de la llamada, ¿no? Nadie que sienta la necesidad de sacarte de ese cuadro en el que estás, por un lado.
Sí, que
por otro lado,
son los hijos, solo la presencia de ellos ya te saca, aunque ellos no hagan nada muchas veces.
Claro, sí. Y además el hecho de poder ir a ciertas profundidades en las que tendrías que encontrarte con una versión bastante asquerosa, entre comillas, de uno mismo, ¿no? Que pasa, que nos pasa. De que, como decía Tristan, me empecé a mentir a mí mismo, y llega un momento en que, claro, en que te encontrás con vos en la versión natural y espontánea que vos mismo habías olvidado o te habías negado que eras él. Yo tengo más.
Sí. Bueno, pues no sé si...
Ahí está Marisol, ¿se parece?
Sí, o sea, bueno, estoy como muy impresionada con toda la información, está muy interesante, y y pues sí, esta parte, ¿no? De lo que comenta Clau, como que vivimos realmente muy aprendido, pero es una adicción de los padres querer arreglar a los hijos, ¿no? En todos los sentidos, y la adicción de los hijos hacia los padres, de querer, o sea, pero qué anestesia tan grande, y es un gran error en el que hemos vivido, porque me llama la atención esta parte de que ahora su amistad se tornó más como en una hermandad, no te quiero arreglar nada, o sea, realmente es abrirme a aceptarte y que juntos vayamos procesando nuestras emociones, porque lo maravilloso es saber esta parte que luego preguntábamos, ¿no? O cuando platicábamos pues de nuestras emociones y nos las compartíamos en el grupo, de que si haciendo nosotros nuestros procesos emocionales, a los hijos pues les podíamos ayudar. Y bueno, todo esto está como pues muy confirmado, ¿no? O sea, al final como es al otro lado del mundo estaba el hijo y oye, ¿qué estás trabajando? ¿No? Que yo estoy también procesando esta parte. O sea, que al final nos vemos afectados de una manera positiva o negativa, ¿no? Emocionalmente y estamos conectadísimos por esa comunicación, ese lenguaje del alma, o sea, que muchas veces no nos es como pues enseñado para que lo despertemos. O sea, es como otra sustancia, como entrar en otro mundo de una comunicación diferente, ¿no?
Y el inmenso poder y la precedencia, o sea, que está, como gobierna el alma tan enormemente, y el poder enorme ese sí de que está como rodeando a todas las cosas a la vez, y la influencia esa sobre un hijo que además, aunque no quiera, va a experimentar los cambios, que tú también tienes varios, que a lo mejor has notado que a la vez cambiaban.
Exacto, esa parte como, bueno, es maravilloso saberlo, ¿no? O sea, que al final queremos ayudar a los hijos, pero no lo estamos haciendo correctamente. Primero trabaja con tu propia emoción de todo lo que estás sintiendo y lo proyectas en ellos. O sea, es como un camino totalmente redirecciona, ¿no?
Pero es muy misterioso porque no es solo lo que proyectas en ellos ahora, sino como que viene del pasado, pero está aquí, súper presente. Es muy misterioso porque es como lo más poderoso, no tiene que ver con el tiempo ni con nada, y de repente empiezas a sentir una cosa y es eso, cambia toda la interpretación posible de los eventos. Les facilitas que ellos dejen de interpretar la vida a la manera de las heridas, que ni saben que las tienen, y es independiente de todo, de la distancia, del tiempo. Es un poder inmenso el del alma, entonces.
Sí, de hecho, pues no trabajas en realidad, o sea, cuando emocionalmente procesas algo, no estás trabajando con la persona, como por ejemplo, la madre, el padre, ¿no? Con la persona física, sino cómo emocionalmente tú viviste esa relación, cómo lo percibiste en tu alma, ¿no? O sea, con todos esos recuerdos, esas memorias, esas heridas, todo lo que se quedó ahí, que esa persona, ese ser humano que estaba ahí en interacción contigo, pues fue marcando, ¿no? Pero en realidad, pues ya esa persona a lo mejor puede ya no estar, ¿no? Físicamente puede haber trascendido, y todo eso, cómo se quedó grabado en el alma. Y al final, es como quitar esas proyecciones, como adueñarnos de todo eso que nosotros enganchamos hacia la otra persona, ¿no? Como una caña de pescar, y ahí pesca, no sé, y ahí nos enganchamos todos energéticamente, ¿no? Y se hace como una enredadera. Si cada uno nos adueñáramos de nuestro sentir, realmente dejaríamos como de estar lanzando estas cañas de pescar a ver quién se engancha ahí, ¿no? Y yo creo que pues obviamente se libera muchísimo en el alma. Cuando también cuando alguien proyecta muchas cosas en ti, ¿no? Por ejemplo, en este caso con Miller, ¿no? Jesús. Toda esa proyección, imagínate qué fuerte. O sea, yo creo que claro que eso te llega, ¿no? Energéticamente, álmicamente, te llega, y pues cómo es procesar todo eso también, ¿no? Todas esas proyecciones de las que nos van pues cargando, y nosotros a otros seres humanos. Entonces, pues como que no, o sea, con razón estamos como estamos todos, ¿no? Sin hacernos responsables de lo que sí podemos y sí nos corresponde, y lo que de plano no podemos, porque no es nuestro papel, ni nuestro lugar, ni nuestra función, porque, o sea, realmente no podemos, ¿no? O sea, ir y cambiar el sentimiento de la persona. Lo puedo hacer y por efecto, pues claro que habrá un cambio, ¿no? En mi ley de atracción hacia mis hijos, pero no es la causa. O sea, la causa está en mí realmente, ¿no? Está súper interesante.
Hay algo que me llamó mucho la atención. Aunque él todavía, bueno, sentía esas emociones desde niño, que cuando tropezó con un clavo, y entonces él sintió que lo estaba que sentía que lo había atravesado. Y todas esas sensaciones que tenía. Y más adelante él comprende que tenía que liberar esas emociones. O sea, no hizo una pared, o sea, un muro para no sentirlo. Aunque él no era en ese momento consciente de su reencarnación, él es así como que me rindo, sigo sintiendo estas emociones. Eso me pareció tan hermoso porque hay esa posibilidad para otros seres, que lo único que, claro, no todos a ese nivel, es sentirlo, es mi opinión. Y otra cosa que me vino a la mente, si tú sientes emociones, aunque tus padres no estén en este plano físico, y como es a nivel del alma, tiene que haber una conexión. O no sé si sigue habiendo.
Hombre, claro.
Eso es lo que pienso.
Y más fuerte muchas veces porque los padres están con el cuerpo físico, sin el cuerpo físico es más directo. Es el sentir, y las adicciones son más fáciles porque no, como no tenemos las 24 horas del día, porque como no hay día, tenemos 24 horas del día para seguir en nuestra matraca emocional. Lo mismo que estuvimos haciendo en la vida física, pues lo mismo, y por eso va la Tierra tan mal, porque hay bandadas y bandadas de espíritus dedicados a satisfacer emociones, de pedofilias, de alcohol. De todo
bueno, pero yo te digo, cuando trabajas tus emociones, o sea, a lo que te refieres, que sigue esa conexión con los padres.
No, si rompes la codependencia, ya solo habrá conexión que ellos acepten más conscientemente y tú aceptes más conscientemente, ¿no? Esa es la teoría clara.
Sí, pero
claro,
si tú estás consciente del trabajo emocional con tu padre, no es que estás adicta a él, es lo que opino, porque es un proceso de trabajar esa emoción que viviste cuando niña o en cualquier momento de la vida. Eso es lo que siento, ¿no? Que si hay esa conexión, aunque no estén, llega, por supuesto.
Claro. Para bien y para mal, sea como esté la historia.
Ok, sí.
¿Verdad?
Cierto.
Totalmente.
Gracias, Juan.
Oye, y entonces, bueno, ahora Tristan se va a ir, creo que dentro de poco ya del estrado, entonces puede ser ese un buen momento para hacer 5 minutos de parada y ver los últimos casos que están muy bien.
Claudia, tú ibas a decir algo, disculpa.
No, iba a sugerir, por ejemplo, a partir de tu pregunta, pero después la modificaste, entonces ya no creo que no. Yo iba a contar el caso de Mark en está en el PDF de emociones, lógica y verdad, en la parte o al revés, lógica, verdad y emociones, no me acuerdo cómo en el orden, por si lo buscan, y cuando hablaban de la experimentación, y el caso de Mark era justamente que ambos padres habían fallecido, pero en la vida, en la experiencia acá en la Tierra, habían tejido esas adicciones y esas creencias de que Mark solo no podía. Entonces tenía muchas dificultades de seguir sin sus padres, porque él concebía la muerte como separación, pero Jesús contribuye con esta idea de que seguía la adicción y que él seguía justamente lo que estaba invisibilizado, entre comillas, mientras ambos padres estaban, que eran el andamio, digamos, en el que Mark se sostenía, ahora quedaba expuesto, pero que los padres seguían alimentando muy probablemente esa relación.
Sí, la misma transición emocional, la misma
claro,
codependencia.
Sí, seguía. Exacto, la misma codependencia desde el plano, desde el mundo espiritual, y él incluso también, ¿no? Reflejaba en su emoción y en las relaciones personales que no prosperaban, entonces que no podía solo con nada.
Sí,
y bueno, eso no.
En el caso de que quieras continuar una dependencia.
Claro, por eso después dije nada.
Quieres trabajar y de verdad hacer un verdadero liberación de esa emoción.
Claro, el proceso del perdón, sí. Este es el proceso del perdón. Que quita la lógica.
Tengo el PDF de los principios natural, o sea, con relación a de un ardiente deseo de Dios. Y es interesante la parte que comenta también Ana, que dice que al final, y las relaciones, la tierra, ¿no? Ya sea con padres, amigos, amantes, se basan en otros factores y necesidades que han sido creadas por impresiones emocionales dañinas de nuestra infancia, padres, cultura o ambiente, pero a menudo que los principios o leyes del amor natural estén presentes, o sea, si no están presentes como estos principios en la relación, en algún momento se va a romper esa relación, ya sea en el plano físico o espiritual, ¿no? Como dicen, o sea, la relación puede seguir en adicción, la relación puede romperse cuando uno ya no juega el juego de la codependencia, y otra es que se transforme la relación, o sea, son todas las posibilidades, ¿no? De acuerdo a la voluntad de quienes interactúan en la relación.
Sí.
Así lo siento. Gracias.
O sea que hay posibilidad siempre, un potencial de que la relación se convierta en algo de amor realmente, ¿no? O sea, cuando sanamos toda nuestra codependencia. Y es hermoso, porque siempre existe el potencial en el alma de eso.
Claro, sí. Eso es así.
Sí, y luego cuando lleguemos a unidad con Dios, no puede ser de otra manera. Nada más que la hermandad total esta de todo el mundo. Sí. Bueno, entonces, vamos a ver unos minutillos más y luego ya paramos 5 minutos y vemos hasta dónde se va Tristan de aquí, que no sé si queda poco, y a ver este ejemplo. Vamos a ver, vamos, sigue aquí.
I married the water, she just said to me before I came here today, because I was quite angry, and I started to hit the boxing, and I've taken to using cardboard tubes, and the last time I did it was at night time, and then I came in and she said, do you have to do that? The whole neighbourhood hears you. And the little kids downstairs going, what's that noise, Mummy? And then I did it today, because I said, okay, I won't do it at night because it keeps everyone up. And I said, I came in And she said she's not coming, and she said, don't get angry. I said, I'm not angry at you, I've got my own stuff. I just can't help myself, but don't take it personally. So I went outside and started bashing again. And in the car, she said to me, I don't know what it is, but since you started, you're always angry, upset, something, and can you get rid of it? Because when you're angry, the whole house vibrates with it. And I said to her, but I'm not taking it out on you, am I? And she says, no, but everyone feels it. So is that I am taking it out on her, or is she just not wanting to feel that?
So she's actually reflecting at you an emotion. The first time she was reflecting at you an emotion. And one reason why you don't want to get into emotions. And that is that you're worried about what other people will think of you. And all she's doing by telling you, oh, the people down the street are going to, complain. She's just saying to you, what the emotion you have is everyone's going to think badly of me if I deal with my emotion. And that's an emotion in you, that's one of your blockages. Does that make sense? Today, one of the blockages, again, that she's identified is that this feeling that she's created in you, she's saying the whole house is vibrating with your energy. That is very true. She's spot on. The whole house is vibrating with your energy, whatever that energy is. If it's anger, it certainly will be anger that the whole house is actually. But what did you feel? You felt guilt, right? That she's now feeling your anger, even though you're trying to do it in another way. So the truth is, when you actually deal with your anger and you really connect with it, she won't reflect any of those emotions to you. But right now, you're still not connected with your anger in its full rage. And she's reflecting perfectly at you every reason why you're not doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think I was aware that I said I'm not finished with this, and I said I might go away to do it somewhere else, and I'd like at least a week or whatever. And she said, "That's okay. I'll find the neighbours, or I'll go there." And she was really, very compliant with the idea, just to get me out of the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Aquí la chica, la hija, que dice como que medio enfadada quizás, no, vale, pues yo te dejo aquí, yo me voy con un vecino o lo que sea, me voy por allá. O sea, realmente está confrontativa, por así decir, con la madre. Vamos a ver ahora.
So, anyway, we're talking about what we can do about that.
Awesome. She is reflecting perfectly at you your blockages to experience your rage. It's another word, by the way, so think on the same. And she's reflecting.
Se ríen por los ruidos de los niños que están.
You perfectly the blockages to dealing with your rage. And the key is to take notice of that. So you have a fear of how your neighbours will feel about you expressing it, or how other people are going to react. You also have a fear that you're actually still projecting it to your family. That's a fear you have, right? as she said, she's not feeling it as much, but the whole house feels it. And that is very true. Until you get into the underlying cause, which will be the grief, the whole house will be anchored. Once you get into the grief and feel it, right? And once you get into the rage and feel it completely, the whole house won't feel it then. But you'll need to step into the grief as well underneath the rage.
Mira, como este es un punto interesantísimo que va a haber, propongo un descanso de 5 minutos para empezar el siguiente con esto. Y
Dale, Iván. Sí, sí.
van a hablar. Vale, pues nada, despediros de los 2,5 millones de suscriptores ya que tenemos. Y gracias. Y ahora seguimos.
Bueno, sí. Gracias. En el próximo
Gracias.
capítulo.
Vale.